All right, everybody. Normally, Miss Bree does the making it intro on her own, but we're gonna jump in there and surprise her and steal the show. Shh.
Babe, you ate my whole omelet!
I'm Miss Bree from Making It, and I'm so glad to see you all here again today in the Peace Pit. And this is my friend Lucas. We've been talking a lot about different ways to take care of yourself, which some people call self-care. So what are some of the things that we've talked about?
Let's see. Well, first of all, we know that self-care is taking it from your feelings from in here to out there, and that doesn't always look how you think it would look. So let's see, what have we done? We made those jars with the different stuff in them. What was that called?
Friend is what you call yours.
Friends, but what were they called again?
Oh, sensory jars.
Sensory jars. Yep. We did wish rocks last week. And then the very first week, we made masks with oatmeal and yogurt right here in the Peace Pit.
Exactly. And your skin is still glowing.
Thank you, babe.
You're welcome. So we have done a lot of things to engage our senses to help us bring our feelings from in here to out there. But today I felt really compelled to stop and take a moment. Because sometimes self-care isn't just about distracting yourself and taking your mind off of your problems and your worries. Sometimes self-care means leaning into your worries and really taking the time to understand and reflect on them. So today we're going to do something called brain mapping. It takes you through the different parts of your brain. And it's really something, it's sort of a meditation that you do on paper. So
Cool.
I'm really excited. So, are you ready to make your brain map?
I'm ready.
So there are 4 different parts of the brain that we're gonna put on your brain map. So the first one actually has a lot to do with what we've been talking about, which is your senses. So what you're gonna do is draw a little brain stem, which is basically just resembles a stem.
And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Should we be using specific colors for specific parts, or?
No, this is all about you
Okay.
and your brain,
Got it. All
your
right.
self-care. So your brain stem is basically where all of your senses bring their information.
Where they
this
stem
is,
from. Yeah.
So this is sort of like where all of the information that your body gets starts. So what we're gonna do first with the brainstem is write down all of the things that we're sensing right now. So I'm gonna give us about 30 seconds. You're gonna write down all the things that you're sensing. So what are the senses again? Name some of them.
Taste, hearing, sight, smell, and touch.
Great. So
And
30.
anywhere on the paper?
No, you're gonna write them around the
Around the
brainstem.
brainstem,
Yes,
okay.
the brainstem, what is it taking in right now?
Got it. Okay.
All right, ready?
Go. So the specific things, the specific smells, the specific things you see. Okay, got it.
Okay. So what is some of the information that your brainstem is taking in right now?
Okay, I smell a little bit of dog poop.
Okay.
Still counts.
Okay.
The omelet, the delicious omelet that I made. I feel obviously the marker, the chair, the metal chair. Still tasting the delicious omelet in case I didn't mention that it was delicious. And feeling the breeze. What about you?
So some of the things I wrote down are,
I wrote down wife. That's so awesome.
I see my husband. I smell these flowers right here that I picked on our walk this morning. I felt the markers in my hand. I feel hot right now. My legs feel a little bit tired.
You also look hot right now. I hope that's okay for me to say. Sorry.
And I also taste the omelet, and
Yeah.
probably more than you, since I actually ate most of it. Okay, so that was the first part of your brain, the brainstem. The second part that you're gonna draw, okay, is actually called the lizard brain. So I'm going to use green just because it makes me think of lizard. So in real scientific terms, this is called an amygdala.
Okay.
It's a section of your brain that's about the size of an almond. And the reason that it's called the lizard brain is because the things that your amygdala controls are similar to the things that a lizard is capable of doing. So lizards live in a very survival-like state. They eat, they sleep. That's pretty much what they do. They think about surviving all day long. So that's kind of what this part of your brain is about, your basic needs. If you have enough to eat, if you have shelter, if you're thirsty, if you're safe. So when this part right here, you're gonna start to write down some of the basic needs that you might be considering right now.
Okay.
So again, we'll take about 30 seconds. So tell me some of the lizard-like things that you're thinking about right now.
Thinking about maybe I'll take a nap at some point
So
today.
you're feeling tired.
Feeling a little bit
Okay.
tired. Definitely, I'm thirsty from the workout. I want to drink some more water, and probably I'll be hungry later too.
Cool. Some of the things that were in my amygdala lizard brain region are, I think right now during this time, one thing that's always on my mind is having enough food for our family, which is why I feel the constant need to go to like the grocery store or like organize the pantry or whatever. And then keeping our house clean and safe. And then in big capital letters, I have virus right now, because that's definitely something that I think is on all of our minds most of the time. I do want to point out before we move on to the next part of the brain map that I think this is really interesting, because you know how there's so many news stories right now about people like buying like toilet paper and like chicken's gonna run out and all this stuff. Okay, well, that's actually a response to the virus that isn't that surprising, because when your brain is in crisis mode, the first thing it's going to do is worry about your basic needs. So for people who are hearing about the virus, it's very normal that the first thing you would do is make sure that you have things like food, shelter, safety. So it's actually not an unexpected response. Okay, so the next part of your brain is called the mammal brain. And it's because the functions that it has are very similar to what mammals are capable of. And it's called the hippocampus. So you can pick another color, it doesn't matter. And you're gonna draw another like layer of your brain. And so again, this one's called the mammal brain. And the things that happen in the mammal part of the brain are things that mammals do. So how would you say mammals and lizards differ?
Ooh, you're really putting me on the spot.
We have two dangerous mammals walking around us right now. But how did they differ from a lizard?
They cuddle.
Okay, so they have emotions.
Right.
Ah, very good. Yes. Anything else?
Also, they are not simply thinking about survival. They're thinking about sort of how they're interacting maybe with different things.
That's exactly right. So this is the behavioral part of your brain. So have you ever heard of like behavioral theory? Like, okay, I give you a treat and you're more likely to repeat that behavior.
Yes.
That's exactly what's happening in sort of this part of the brain. So in this part of the brain, you experience emotion, and that's because your emotions are signaling to you how to manage your behavior. Automatic is the key word here. So what behaviors are programmed? So let's take 30 seconds. What behaviors are programmed in your mammal brain? All right, what have you thought of so far?
I would say, so I was thinking, you had me thinking about like what I do when I wake up. So I would say like you said, coffee, maybe saying good morning to you, checking my email. Maybe even jumping on social media for a minute.
Okay, great. Yeah, those are all behaviors. Yep. And I said some very similar things. So, like, something I am having a hard time breaking right now is laying in bed every morning.
With those pups?
Yeah, because these girls are there to snuggle. It makes me feel good. That's me sort of trying to meet my emotional needs. Netflix is a good example.
Yeah.
So Netflix is, makes people happy, and so they keep doing it. So that's kind of how your mammal brain works. Wow, we're getting a great example of a mammal brain here. She likes that, so she's gonna keep jumping. Okay, so are you ready for the last part of your brain?
Yes.
Okay, I feel like this is the part of your brain where you really excel.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the human part of the brain.
Is this the part where you worry?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I excel at worrying.
So it's also called the prefrontal cortex, for those of you who care about the correct terminology, but it is the human brain. It's what makes us human. So what do you think are some things that make us uniquely human?
Rational thought.
Yes.
Worrying, as we said.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like depression and anxiety. Yeah, that's
Analysis, yes, exactly.
Evaluation.
Decision making. So decision making is something that humans, have the ability to do at a much higher sort of analytic level than most other animals. So this part of the brain is where all of that big thinking happens. This is a part that is really therapeutic for you to dive into and think about during this time. So I'm going to give you probably a minute or two to really think about the things that you're worrying about, the things that you're analyzing right now.
You're only going to give me a minute or two?
The things that when you're laying in your bed at night are sort of creeping into your mind. So what are those things?
Okay.
So let's go. 1 minute. What are you thinking about right now? All right, so how are you feeling?
I feel so much better. I feel like I did a whole self-care activity because I did. All my stuff is out here.
So what are some of the things that you shared in your prefrontal cortex area?
So in terms of the things I think about and worry about, like obviously the safety and well-being of our family, both here and extended across the country. How the BRIC staff and fellows are doing and their families are doing, how BRIC as an organization is doing. All these things are running through my mind all the time.
Yeah.
But this helps.
That's definitely engaging your
My senses.
Yeah, amygdala. Yeah. So some of the things I wrote down in my prefrontal cortex are: am I contributing enough to the world, especially during this time? Am I gaining weight during quarantine?
You're not.
Do I have enough friends? What will normal look like when we're done? Those are some of the bigger picture things that I know are on my mind. So it is helpful. Isn't it nice to kind of get them out there?
It
and
is.
Helps you sort of get some perspective on like what your thoughts are doing in your head. So the last thing that I kind of want to talk through to help us fully digest and understand our brain maps is when you're experiencing stress or trauma or something like a pandemic, your brain actually is pretty organized, surprisingly, and it operates just in the order that we drew the parts of our brain. So if you are someone who is worried about meeting basic needs, that's kind of where you're going to stay.
Sure.
And so your brain isn't going to go into some of those more like rational decision-making places, which again brings us back to toilet paper.
Yep.
Yes, totally normal that people are doing that right now, because when something like this sort of threatens the health and safety of your family or community, the first thing you're thinking is, gosh, am I going to meet the basic needs of everyone around me? And when you're going through stress, even in smaller ways, this is sort of how our brains work. Now, one of the curses of being human is that sometimes we overanalyze
I never do that, ever.
Yeah. So I sometimes say that the pandemic has turned into a plandemic.
Nice.
Yes. Because what people tend to do when something like this happens is just, okay, I'm going to make all these plans. And that makes them feel safe. That makes them feel like everything's okay. So that's kind of how our brain works. Do you have any reflections on how your brain might be operating in this plandemic?
I think it's just cool to think about the layers and kind of the hierarchy of your thinking. And, you know, it's different. Even though our brains are organized, I don't think we perceive them as being organized. So to actually write it out, it makes it feel actually organized in your real life.
Yeah, it kind of helps you to get control of your thoughts.
Yeah.
You know what's another helpful activity is to do a brain map pretending that you're someone else. And it kind of helps you to feel more empathetic to what they might be going through. So if I made a brain map for you, you know, that would help me to understand where you might be coming from with certain behaviors or things that you care about.
Yeah.
If I made a brain map for these little guys,
You wouldn't get all the way out to the prefrontal cortex.
exactly, they would only get the amygdala and the hippocampus.
They look like their needs are being met though right now.
I think so. All right, well that's it. This is our brain map. We'll do a little flash for the camera. I hope that maybe sometime in the next few days you take a few minutes to kind of think about what's on your mind, literally. And I have enjoyed reflecting on this with you. Thank you again for joining us.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Miss Bree.
And thank you.